We're back with Steve and Joe Bondy today. Joe Bondy is a top 1% mortgage specialist in Canada for the last 8 years. Recently coming from one of the top banks in Canada and recently starting his own team and his own brokerage. Want to welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I thank Steve for representing the new attire and the garb. Joe, not so much, but that's okay.
This is like become my standard uniform for all podcasts.
And we need to start getting some like higher class Joe Conlon clothing.
Well, we have our crew neck podcast hoodies, but my wife has completely like hijacked all of them.
It's just commandeered.
They're all gone. Joe, you are our first mortgage rep that we've ever had on the podcast. I'm glad to have you on here. I know we've talked about it for a bit with COVID and everything going on, and you having twins in the last, year and a half now?
2 years now.
2 years.
January 10th. So
it's been busy. It's been busy, but we're here and we're looking forward to 2022. Obviously, things are starting off a little crazy, and we're going to get into that today. And we're going to get Joe's take on the market. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about it over the last few podcasts. So I'm excited to get at it.
It's the hot topic out there right now, obviously. It always seems to be at the start of every year when things drastically increase, and then it becomes the hot topic out and about.
Most people are worried about rates. That's what you read in the news all the time. Rates are going to increase. Rates are going to increase. That's what everybody's worried about.
Right. And they didn't just increase when people thought they were going to, right?
Yeah, this month they thought they were going to increase 0.25%. They said, no, we're going to hold off till next month. I don't think we can avoid it. I think there's going to be a 0.25% increase next month. But I mean, that's on the variable side. So if you're on the fixed rate, you're locked in. That's inconsequential to you, right?
Until you need to
until you're up for renewal and so forth.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing mixed articles on the rate changes. Some are saying anywhere from 5 to 7 hikes potentially over the next year. Some are saying maybe 1 or 2. Obviously, they have to tread lightly here. We've never been through a pandemic like this before with inflation, people being out of work, things that are going on. Obviously, the house prices are through the roof. What do you think? Obviously, it's hard. You don't have a crystal ball, but where do you stand on as far as like the rate hikes and what do you think could happen?
I don't think they can raise them 6 to 7 times like they want to. I think really what's got to happen is you might see 2 to 3 rate increases this year. Unfortunately, there's just too much debt out there. The pandemic has made it so that, people weren't losing their houses. There was very few power of sales during this pandemic, which is awesome because we don't want to make our livings off of taking people's houses away from them. But at the same time, they had to deplete their savings. So their nest egg, their savings is gone, right? They had to accumulate debt, do cash advances in order to keep making their mortgage payments and keep that house going. Now that the economy is opening back up, people are going to get back to work. They want to raise rates, but you're going back to work. You're not getting a 0.25% increase in your pay. You're going back at the same wage you were. So by them raising rates, if they raise them fast, we're going to have a crash again, just like in 2008, 2009, in my opinion.
Well, what's the historic average of rates? I mean, I think, isn't it somewhere around 7%? Like if you look historically over a long period of time, like isn't that
a good healthy economy is having a rate around 5%.
5%.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think they know, I mean, like you said, if they raise rates drastically, I mean, Canada, I think, is one of the most debt leveraged countries in the world.
We are right now, yeah.
Right. So they know if they raise these rates drastically, which should give people out there a little bit of comfort knowing that, like, your interest rate isn't going to shoot to 6 or 7% here, because they know that would be
what do you think their target is? Do you think they're going for like a 3.5%, 4%, or do you think they're trying to shoot for that 5?
I mean, right now we have a stress test at 5.25, right?
Right.
So even if they raise it, people aren't going to lose their houses because they've all been approved at that 5.25 rate.
Right.
So if they raise it 3 times, if we get the 0.75% increase, you're still going to be around 3.25%.
So on paper, they can afford that increase, but
so for people watching right now, can we explain the stress test a little bit? Because I don't think people realize that there's a stress test that's out there, and their actual true affordability actually would be a lot more, and that the Bank of Canada has already these protocols in place to kind of protect us in case of rate hikes.
So a few years ago, the Bank of Canada wanting to increase the rates before the pandemic, they put in place a stress test. And what that is it basically says that in 5 years from now or 4 years from now, when your mortgage comes up for renewal, if the rates go up to 5.25%, can you still afford this house?
Right.
So we always approve everybody, no matter if your rate's 1.5%, 2%, 3%. We currently approve you at 5.25% or 2% above your contracted rate. So what that means is if your mortgage rate was 4%, well, we add 2% to that. We got to qualify you at 6% versus 5.25%. So there is a buffer for everybody.
A safety net.
A safety net so that people can still afford their house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So on the reverse effect, when we talk about people having to deplete their savings, I think there's also the people out there that have still made a decent amount of money and haven't lost work and haven't gone out and shopped and bought food and gone out for dinners and wasted as much money. There's also people that have actually been able to save a lot more. In the fact that there's also people that have lost money. But the other thing too is with the raising house prices, anybody who's owned a home has a lot of equity right now in their homes. And I'm seeing a lot of people are refinancing to do renovations, which means they're hiring contractors, they're hiring electricians, they're hiring plumbers, and they're getting work out there. So is it possible that the raise in real estate has also allowed more jobs to come in because people are refinancing and putting that money back into their homes and spending their money on bigger projects that they weren't originally able to do or afford? So could you say that it also could go in the other direction and help the economy a little bit?
Well, it's helped certain aspects of the economy. Most small businesses took a real big hit over the last 2 years, right?
For sure.
Yes, real estate did fantastic. Construction did fantastic, especially in southwestern Ontario, because everybody seems to be moving out of the big cities because we can do everything virtually now, right? So
and the
you
cost
don't have
of materials went up like crazy too through the pandemic because of a lot of renovations and things
supply
happening,
chain
right?
issue
and supply
as well.
chain issues and
a big fear people have is if the market were to crash, everybody is like inevitably waiting for this crash to happen. There's people that are saying, I'm not buying a house, I'm waiting for this crash to happen. Yes, corrections can always happen. And in 2008 and 9, I believe that's one of the worst, if not the worst, that we've ever seen.
It's the worst in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And it went down 11%.
Right.
The worst. Went down 11%.
Right.
And within a year, it was back.
yes.
I think around 2008 to 2009, it had made the big drop. And by 2010, we were back to even and then growing on again. When I analyze the trends over the last 60, 70 years, anytime there's a drop, it seems like it's a lot more. Everybody has the same goal, and that's growth. And when something drops, everybody steps in to make sure that that drop is reversed really quick back into growth. And obviously, when it's growing, we want to prolong that as long as possible. So I always notice the drops are shorter and the growths are a lot longer. And my question to you is, because we've grown as much as we have, if we were to drop, do you think it would be worse than the 11%? And do you think we would recover fairly quickly? Obviously, again, you don't know for sure, but what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, we have an inventory problem, right? So even if it were to drop, which it wouldn't, I mean, we have 250,000 people, if not more, immigrating to this country every year. They got to have a place to live. So
Right.
the problem is
I think they said it's closer to 400,000 people. They try to bring in immigration every year.
I got an article that just came out 2 days ago. You got to check this out. News Ontario. I think they just announced 400 and something thousand by the end of this year, another 400,000 next year, and another 400 and change to 2024. We're looking at almost 1.5 million new immigrants to Ontario during a housing crisis and shortage, and we're bringing in a record-setting almost 1.5 million more people in the next 2.5 years.
And we were talking to another realtor the other day, and I think he said, last year was a record number of new construction starts in Canada at 300,000, but we're bringing in 400,000 people into the country. And that doesn't mean they're all coming in and buying these new builds, but everything shifts around, right? They come in and they need a place to live, whether they're renting that place or they're buying a starter home or it just all kind of shifts up the line, right? So the math isn't adding up. The supply isn't going to...
They can't build the houses fast
No,
enough
they
for
can't.
the amount of people coming in.
Right.
And that's why our houses are appreciating so fast,
Exactly.
right?
So we have here on the National Post, this was just posted on February 14th, 2 days ago. Canada to bring in record numbers of immigrants by 2024. Canada will admit 431,645 permanent residents in 2022, 447,055 next year, and 451,000 in 2024.
Those are oddly specific numbers.
Yes. That lucky 55 that gets to come in. This is according to the Immigration Minister Sean Fraser's plan, and this is going to be record-setting. So the pandemic's done, hopefully. And in the next 2-3 years, they're looking at bringing close to 1.2 to 1.5 million more people into an area that's already struggling with housing.
There needs to be a plan.
Storm's brewing.
Storm's brewing. Here's the thing. Immigration obviously is paramount in this country. I mean, we're a lot of us, and the way that the country works is built on this immigration and labor force that we bring into the country, and it's good for the country for a lot of reasons. But during a housing crisis like this, where there isn't a solution in the works and there's just been a lot of Band-Aid talk floating around, there needs to be some sort of step in the right direction, I think, before we continue to just buff up our population with people coming in every year.
We need a lot of infrastructure too, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The infrastructure can't keep up.
Well,
your sewers capacity.
That's right.
Can't handle it.
While we're on that conversation, we've had a lot of conversations in this podcast and outside this podcast in regards to why is Windsor growing at the rate it's growing. And I know this is also a provincial issue, but we've looked at what our average sale price was in relation to London and Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, like 5-6 years ago, and what it is now, and we are slowly closing that gap. So it means that Windsor is growing for some reason, and obviously I think it's affordability in housing, but what do you see as far as why are people buying here, and what do you see as the long term here in the Windsor area?
Well, I think Windsor is an isolated market compared to the rest of Canada. I think when you're going to see a dip, you'll see a dip in the bigger cities such as
this
Toronto.
Is what I say all the time.
And so forth, because now you don't have to be in the big smoke, to go to meetings, because you can do Zoom or webcasts or whatever, Teams or whatever it is, right?
I think we're going to get a lot of that immigration here. They're going to land, say, in Ottawa and Toronto. The affordability is not going to be sustainable for them.
But we have a lot of land here still.
And they're going to migrate where there's land and affordability. And
we're seeing condos go up like crazy here in Windsor. We've never seen this before, right?
And that's a topic to touch on right there is condos and just getting outside of the box in your mind of what it is to own a home and to become a first-time home owner. Is the condo market really needs to be where a lot of young buyers are putting their focus now. So like you say, there's condos going up in Windsor that we've never seen before. I think that needs to happen a lot more.
But I mean, the cheapest condo now is around $400,000, right? So first-time home buyers are having a really tough time.
I know.
Some strategies we're using when I talk to people and I say, okay, well, you can afford, a $280 mortgage. In the past, that was awesome, right? Everybody was happy. You got a nice raised ranch for that.
Yep.
Now you can't even get a condo for that.
We're looking at mobile homes.
Mobile homes for that price, exactly, on leased land. The leased land brings down your affordability,
right? Because it's like $600 a month.
That lease. So now you can afford.
Now every city has its different set of first-time homebuyers. Our first-time homebuyers now are going to fall in the $350,000 to $600,000 range. That seems to be the range. Now, what happens with Guelph and Waterloo with now an average sale price of $1.2 million? Are there first-time homebuyers just that set of buyers now? Is it just as we grow, we lose a set of first-time homebuyers and gain the new set of first-time homebuyers? And is this become a 3-step process instead of going from your starter home to your forever homes? It's starter home to second home to third home, and almost have to work your way up to climb that ladder?
Well, I think anybody who's a first-time homebuyer, most of them have to have a co-signer now because they just can't do it. Mm-hmm. Or, they need to
get creative
by, buy a house with your brother or your sister. You've been living together for X amount of years. So buy it together, stay in that house for 1 to 2 years, build up that equity, it becomes your down payment on the next one. So as much as the housing market's going up crazy, the mortgage amounts aren't going up as crazy. And the reason for that is all that equity that they get when they sell their house, they just move it to the new property.
Right. They're not losing that money.
So they're upgrading
shifting
for almost the same mortgage,
right,
or just slightly higher than what they're doing now.
If these other cities in Ontario are any indication of the way things are trending for the Windsor market, I think that the answer is you just got to get in. You got to get in one way, shape, or form to build that equity so that you don't become a renter forever, right? There's a small window for certain buyers that have certain incomes where if they can't get themselves into the market soon, they may never be able to get in the market if they don't have a support system.
This is a tough thing for a lot of people to overcome mentally, though, too, because what I've seen the trend is every year the new year comes along and there's a set of articles that come out, inflammatory articles that come out that say, in one way or another, a drop is coming, and that puts people on a path of okay, I'm going to wait, right? And then we sit down and we talk with them, and you do the same thing because we're all working with the same people at different steps in their journey. And we say, hold on, let's look at the historical data. Let's see what's been happening here. There's nothing indicating that that's going to happen, but we're working against, the media and social media and this melting pot of information that people are getting thrown at them, at every turn. And it makes our job more difficult in the sense that we just, I'm not here to just try to push you into a house you don't want. I'm here to try to get you on the best path that you can be on to set yourself up for life and to set your family up and to raise a family in a home. And, I'm not trying to get you into a house, in a couple months because I really want to make that money. I'm trying to get you in a house in the next couple months because I know 6 months or a year down the road, you aren't going to be able to afford that house anymore, right? So that's the uphill battle I feel like we're on right now.
It's a simple math equation. People are waiting for that big drop. Well, 2008, 2009, where it dropped 11%.
Right.
Well, that only brings you back to December.
Yeah, we've gone up 11% since December.
If the market drops 11%, you're sitting around Christmas time this year, and you never should time the market. You never should try to time the market. If you buy a home and the market unfortunately decides to drop, just don't sell. Don't panic. Don't sell. If you lose your job, move back in with mom and dad and rent it out until it recovers. We've talked about that over and over again.
Yeah.
At least when you own a home, you can manipulate the market in your favor.
You're moving with it, right?
If I go and invest in a company and the company goes out of business, I lose my money. But if I invest in real estate and the market drops, I have options. I'm in control of my property. It's real property. I can go move back in with mom and dad. I can rent out the property. When the market recovers, then I sell. You don't have to panic and sell. The only way you would lose is obviously if you had found a way to not make your payments. But there's people looking for rentals all the time. And if the market were to drop, people are going to be selling and looking for rentals. There's going to be more tenants out there looking. The main thing is to get in the market. It's shown in the past, historically, that if the market does drop, it's a very short amount of time before you can recover that. And in Southwestern Ontario, I don't see any long-term drops happening anytime soon. Southwestern Ontario is growing very fast with almost 1.2 to 1.5 million more people coming in. And I just don't see us going in the backwards direction. It's just not
Well, like Joe just said, I mean, we have an indicator in bigger cities like Toronto and area where we kind of get the writing on the wall. When something changes there, we kind of know something might be coming here. It's not just going to all of a sudden drop in Windsor out of the blue, right? We're still the most affordable, mid-sized city in Southwestern Ontario. So
something big could happen, like a pandemic. That we grew over 30% in just the last 12 months. Yeah.
One thing first-time home buyers have to realize is we gotta all collectively manage our expectations. They're all coming from mom and dad's big 2-story house, and they want to move into something similar. But in this market, that's $700,000-800,000 to start,
if not more.
If not more.
Yeah.
Well, they can't afford that being a first-time home buyer. So you gotta be able to step back, either going to a condo or going to
renovation
a little
mortgage,
2-bedroom house, do a purchase plus improvements mortgage, something where you got to get into the market and you can't wait.
There's something about, I always say, that HGTV mindset. People are so fixed on like Pinterest, Instagram, HGTV, how houses, they have this expectation of how houses should look. And people forget what a first home should be. And your first home should be the cans of paint, rolling the walls, and cleaning it up. This is your first investment to grow. If you go to half these houses that are selling like crazy, all it is white trims and gray walls and nicely staged. When you go buy a house that doesn't have those things, you get it for an extreme discount. You go and make those paint jobs and trims yourself, and it costs you a fraction of the price, and you're the one that's going to grow that equity. You're the one that's going to make all that money.
I think unfortunately a lot of that comes along. You say HGTV mindset. I say social media.
Right. Keeping up with
envy.
the Joneses. Yeah.
It is keeping up with the Joneses. People seeing what other people are putting out there, and look what I bought. Look at how much I've done to my house, and look how beautiful it is. And people want that.
They don't want to take
themselves, but they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Well, we're in a immediate gratification mindset, right? I need it now. And then what do? They run up their credit cards. They run up their lines of credit. They get it now. Luckily, we're in a market of appreciating houses, so they can refinance and kind of pay it
consolidate
off.
that.
All of our clients that have made the most money are the ones that have bought the houses that need the most work. Now, when I say most work, I'm not talking knocking down walls, replacing furnaces and roofs. We're talking cosmetic.
Right.
Things that are dated 1950s, 60s, 70s styled homes that you have to flip, maybe a bathroom. And other than that, they're move-in ready. They're usually well taken care of. They're just dated. They got wallpaper on the walls, and people overlook it. The photos don't show as well. And these are the houses I think that people need to start looking at. And Mortgage Plus Improvements, I'd love for you to kind of explain that, just because people don't know that's an option that they have, where if they buy a house a little bit below their budget, they can invest a little bit more into the home and roll it into their mortgage and maybe pay back mom and dad who lent them the money or a line of credit.
Yeah, so like the way a Purchase Plus Improvements goes, it's great for, say, first-time home buyers or even second-time home buyers, people who have, less than, say, 20% down, because they can put about 40 grand worth of work into that house. As long as when the renovations are done, it appraises out at that 40 grand higher. They can do all that work, which could be new flooring, a new kitchen, maybe.
So do they have to? They have to pay that up front, right? They pay, get receipts, and then submit. Is that how it works?
So we approve it up front. So up front, they're going to go and they're going to get quotes.
Okay.
They can go to Home Depot, get a quote. They can do the work themselves, or they can get a contractor to do the work. If they do the work themselves, they got to finance it and fund it. The lawyer holds the money in trust until the work is complete. Then they release it to them at the end. But if you're doing a, say, $40,000 reno, your down payment has to increase by that 40 grand or a percentage of that 40 grand, right? So, you got to know your down payment is going up as well with that.
Right.
Now, if you use a contractor, sometimes they say, just give me a deposit and then pay me from the proceeds when it's done. So they don't actually have to have that 40 grand in cash or the bank of mom and dad or whoever else, right? They
Good
can
to know.
Have the contractor hold it. He does the work, and then we release the funds. He signs an affidavit saying all the work was done and everything's great.
Yeah.
So
we have other options too, where people can get creative. The city of Windsor now allows, it's in a little bit for some time now, additional dwelling units. As long as you're a primary owner of the home and you're living in the home, you can rent out the basement, the upper floor, the back addition, or some sort of detached dwelling, whether you converted a garage or some sort of accessory building into an in-law suite. The reason they're allowing this, even though you're not a true duplex, as long as you're the primary person occupying the other unit of this home, they will allow you to rent out these without being a true duplex. This is huge. This is what you see in Vancouver in the last 10 years. This is what you saw in Toronto, where first-time homebuyers were moving in, and you see on those HGTV shows where they're completely gutting a basement and turning it into this little apartment so that they can help some sort of
can offset the cost of
exactly.
their mortgage. Yeah.
So these are things that people need to take a look at, and if they keep playing the poor me, look at this market victim role, which I have sympathy. This is not fun for anybody, but it's the reality of what we're facing, and if you don't get creative and do something now, you may end up becoming a tenant.
Now,
for
just
good.
Looking at the pictures that you got on the screen, Joe, the top two are cool. The bottom left-hand one is good as well. But the additional dwelling that's detached from the house, very hard to refinance in the future and get value out of it. Most lenders won't give you value to an outbuilding, which is what that is.
Do you think that'll change?
I think it's going to change.
As that is more...
We do have a lender we're working with right now, trying to go over, creating a policy with them. And because, like Amherstburg allows the tiny homes, additional dwellings in Windsor. This is going to be...
They're calling them garden suites now in Toronto and area, because I know that's...
As long as it's attached, you can get value out of it. As soon as you detach it, now it's an outbuilding, and whether it's a pool house or
it's
or a
tough
garage
to
with
that,
a suite upstairs, we can't use the rent unless it's claimed on a tax return. I mean, there's a lot of pitfalls on that.
But if the units already existed on the property and it was something they were able to rent out and just to help offset the cost, it's still something that can help them, correct?
It doesn't help them from a refinance standpoint.
But only on a monthly payment standpoint.
If they claim it on their taxes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday in our meeting. We're all really hurting with our first time buyers right now and trying to figure out ways to help them. And I think the hardest thing is we're constantly having to update the mindset, because we're not seeing the market change on a quarterly basis. We're seeing it change on a weekly basis right now. So we're coming out of the holidays and we're like, hey, sorry, the market's gone up again. The houses that we're seeing are now worth this, and we have to kind of change that mindset, or else you're going to continue wanting to see houses that are out of your price range. But then a week later, we have to have that hard conversation again and again and again, and it's really beating the morale of the clients down, because there's nothing worse than finding out every week, as hard as this market is, it's only getting harder. I hope, and statistically and historically, we've seen this, I'll pull it up in a second, that more houses do become available by a significant number in March, and it does get a lot better and peaks around May or June. So I really hope that we have a strong spring with inventory.
Well, our broker, Frank, last year put an email out that talked about first-time home buyers and the struggles they're facing. And one of the things I remember he said in that email was that Windsor is kind of shedding its veil of affordability. It's historically, for the people of Windsor especially, always kind of been an affordable place to live, right? People understood that they could go buy a house for...
It was the best kept secret.
Exactly, right? And now that affordability is being shed, and we're joining the other major centers in the country, and it's happened very quickly, and that's a really tough thing for people to get their minds around so fast. Like it's so hard to explain to a client that in the last few months things have gone up 20% or 25%, right? That's really hard to grasp. It's hard for us to grasp that that's happening, right? So to have to explain that to them and sit them down and say, look, we can't look at these houses anymore. It's a really tough
well, the other thing is
get across.
Those people who want to wait, if it goes up 25%, your down payment has now gone up 25%.
That's right.
You can't save as fast as this
market. No, you can't outsave the market.
Right?
Nope.
At this stage of the game. So that's another issue that they're having trouble with. Now, anybody selling a place, they're okay because they've got so much equity built up.
Yeah. So, and again, the ones that are in the market have a little bit easier time because they have a place to stay until they find the place they want. And if the market grows, so is the product that they're in. But this goes back to you gotta get in the market. The ones that are okay are the ones that are able to move with the market because they already own, and it just shows the importance of trying your best to find a way. And I understand it's easier said than done, but there's a lot of people with still a very picky mindset, and I don't think we're in a market where you can be as picky as you used to. I mean, everyone thinks us agents love this market. They're like, oh, you guys are killing it, you must love this. And we've talked about this. 10 years ago, I used to show a first-time home buyer 30 houses on a weekend, and they said, I want that one, and we would just go and negotiate it. That was a lot easier for the client. That was a lot easier for me, and I like that market a lot more. Now you show them 10 houses, they write on one, they get their butts kicked, they go and do it again, and they do it again and do it again, and the morale goes down. There's nothing fun about that for anybody. And this has been a struggle for not just first-time homebuyers, but for agents to help service their clients. And it gets harder as we accumulate more and more clientele. Everybody has a surplus right now. I'm sharing my screen really quickly.
Okay.
This is the last 12 months of this is the 12 months of 2021, and this is new listings on market for each month. And you'll see this is nothing new that we haven't seen before. January and February, very, very low inventory, as well as December. Look at how much it had spiked just by March. And then it stays consistently that high until the summer. If I go back to 2020, you'll see a little bit different because in April we hit the pandemic, so you'll see it drop. But you can see it was low, starting to trend upward. Obviously, we hit a snag with getting in.
Well, half of March was in there too. So I mean,
so we
March
saw a
even wasn't
delayed
as high
spring
as
that
it
year. The delayed spring went all the way to November.
Yeah.
If you go back the year before the pandemic in 2019, this is what we saw. January, February, same thing. Inventory eventually does come. Go back 2018, same thing. And then 2017 will be the last one I show. Again, this isn't anything new. This is normal for this time of year.
Yeah.
This is what causes the growth, though, because we're low inventory, which causes more competition, which then causes higher prices. We'll see that growth go in until more inventory hits the shelves. And I think that inventory usually we see stabilizes somewhere around end of April.
Yeah, it's a
and May.
normal cycle. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's not beneficial to people out there trying to find a home, but when you have low inventory like we have in January, February, the demand doesn't go anywhere. There's still that many people out there trying to buy a home. So they all start competing on these properties, and you might end up with 20 or 30 offers on a property. That causes it to sell for a super high sale price. And then guess what? That becomes a new comparable for that type of home in that area. And the more that happens, the more those prices go up, because now in March, April, and May, we're going to look back at these sales that have happened in January, February and say, that's what they're worth.
So the funny thing about this graph is when you look at it and you look at it historically, if you were to invert it and flip it upside down, that's how interest rates go. As you hit the June, July, August, you get the lowest rates of the year.
Wow.
Whereas as the, say, number of sales or listings go down, the interest rates go up.
Now,
which is kind of
what
cool.
What we've seen in previous years, just because we have more houses hitting market historically, and I guess this is most likely going to happen next month, just because we're getting more listings doesn't mean the competition gets any better, because we still have this surplus of buyers that we have to kind of help wean out. And so when that first big month hits in March, it's still very competitive because of the amount of buyers we have. And then April's slightly a little better, and it's not usually till May until you start seeing houses with only 2 or 3 offers, and it finally gets to a stable spot. And that usually will stay until about September. And every September, when everyone's finishing their vacations in August, and September everyone's going back to school, everyone's like, oh, the market's changing. I think we're finally starting to see it turn. Nope, that's just September. And you're probably going to look back at September the next year when you're in January stressing out again. I should have bought back in September.
Yeah.
It's a normal cycle of things. You'll see, and when you watch the graph, it goes down. The inventory is very low in September because people are focused on back to school, back to work. And then there's a little bit of a hike in October before going into the holidays, and then it drops back down. So this is nothing that we haven't seen before. It's just at the highest scale of average sale price, and it is the lowest inventory we've ever seen. But I think that also has to do with people being hiding away from the pandemic, kids being at home from school, and obviously if the prices are going up and expected to be worth more next month, then people are going to hold off the extra month to sell their home. So I do expect a very busy spring with inventory, and even a busy summer. I think we just have to be patient and hope that the prices don't get too out of hand between now and then.
So in your opinion, as the real estate professionals, should they hold off to May, June, April? Or, I mean, with the low inventory in February right now, and, with 65 offers,
there's a couple
55
interesting
offers,
there's a couple interesting things to it depends on what side of the transaction that you're on, because I just had a seller that I had this conversation with and said, and all they had to do was sell, and they weren't on the buying side. So I said, look, you can wait till the spring if you want, but one of the things you're going to have to realize is there's going to be 2 or 3 times as much competition for your house out there at that time. The buyers are going to spread out over those houses. You might end up with less offers. Now, I can't guarantee you're going to get a higher or a lower price at that time, but I can tell you right now, if you put your house on the market, you're going to have a ton of people interested in your home.
Your February, March listings are your trendsetters.
Right.
So your February, March listings are those competitive ones that set the standard of prices for the spring. So a lot of times the record-setting listings are your February, March, and yes, the prices might be higher in May or April, but that's only because your listings in February, March were the ones that set those standards for the higher prices. And then going into for the buyers, yes, it's going to, there's a plus and a minus for both. You could buy right now. The minus is there's not a lot out there. The plus is the prices might be cheaper than what you're going to have to spend in 2 or 3 months. The plus in 2 or 3 months is you're going to have a lot more options. The minus is the prices might be just a little bit higher. So you pick your battle. If you can find the right house now and get in before the market maybe goes up another 5 to 10%.
Yeah, I always say, ideal. I mean, the perfect time to buy is right now.
Yeah,
it's right now because prices are only going in one direction, right? And if you can find now, it just depends on whether or not you feel like you're settling or not as a buyer. If you feel like you're just buying something to try to save a little bit of money, but you're not getting what you want, you know, that could be the thing that tips the scales one way or another for you. But from a first-time home buyer's perspective, one of the things, and this feeds off of what we were just talking about, I mean, your first home probably isn't going to be exactly what you want. And I don't think it should be anymore. I think your mindset has to change on that. And I think you have to start realizing that that first home can be a stepping stone to something greater, and put a little bit of work into it, increase the value of it, and grow with the market and get in now so that you can join in on those gains. Because if you just wait another 6 months or a year, you're going to be, you know, another 20 or 30% behind where you were right now.
You have to treat it like it's an investment more than a home.
Right.
It's every home's an investment, but your first home is strictly an investment more than a home. If you don't buy a house, where are you going? Are you living with mom and dad, or are you living in an apartment? Is living with mom and dad or living in an apartment any better than the home that you may not have wanted? You might as well buy your home, which is your temporary apartment, let it grow in equity, cash out, and use that equity to make that step up in the next.
It's a tough thing for people to wrap their minds around, buying something that's not, you know, you're not going to go to a car lot and pick the car that you don't want. Right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna put your research in, and you're gonna go in there, and you're gonna pick the car that suits you and fits you best. But this isn't a car, you know. Cars lose their value the second they drive off the lot. A house is just gonna keep increasing in value.
You said it best. It's the instant gratification people want. People
right.
don't like putting their lives and goals off 2 or 3 more years and having to wait for the market to grow so that they can cash out to get that next home. They want it now.
Well, it's their pride too, right? You have a pride of ownership. You want to have a place that you're happy to invite your friends over, not just.
And you want to be able to put your house on social media, and you want people to be envious, right? Like that's the mentality that people have now. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what's driving people's motivation is. It's hard being able to show off.
It's hard to work with buyers when their mindset isn't on them, it's on what other people think.
Yeah.
When you have buyers that buy on what other people think, it makes it very difficult for everybody because it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
We also have the old mentality that they get their advice from their parents, and when their parents bought their first house, you could go in 10 grand below list, right? Can't do that anymore.
Touche. That happens all the time. You get
that house isn't worth 600 grand.
Right.
That was 300 grand 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
It's probably going to sell for 7 now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to keep up just as much as the parents and the clients.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're just as sticker shocked every other day when we see new sale prices coming in. And this isn't a Windsor issue. This is a supply and demand issue, provincial and national.
Yep.
It's not, everyone's like, well, you realtors are driving up the price. Sorry, no. It's the entire country is trying to buy houses with not a lot of houses, and it's causing prices to go up. This isn't a one-person issue in a one industry. It's not the bank's fault. It's not the realtor's fault. It's not the buyer's fault. Everybody is trying here to get their clients into homes. Banks are trying to get people financed for homes, and the buyers are trying to get themselves into their first or second or third homes. Everybody's trying to move forward in life, and there's just not a lot of options, and it's causing prices to go up. So people can point the fingers where they want, but everybody's in the same problem. This isn't fun for anybody.
That's right.
I mean, the one positive is, you know, when you go to finance it, I'd say 99% of the time the appraisals are coming in. So the clients aren't left holding the bag. Yes, we can look at the area. The comps show that it's worth what you paid for.
Or I'm finding even if, you know, those appraisers are looking at the area, the appraisers in the area are aware of what's happening in this market right now too. So it's not even just about, whether or not the comps are perfect for that home. It's they're looking at the comps, and then they're also saying, well, it's February and there's nothing on the market right now, and this is the trend that we're seeing not just in comparable houses but in every house in the area, right? I think they're using that knowledge as well to kind of come to the conclusion that these houses are worth that.
Yeah.
Right? They can't, because if we're just relying on comparable sales from September or October of last year, they're not comparable anymore. The prices have gone up so much that
most lenders are now asking for nothing older than a 90-day comp.
Right.
So some even want just a 60-day comp, right? So
are you still seeing a lot of are you lending to a lot of investors still? You still feel the investing is as strong as it was the last 2 or 3 years?
It is, although the cash flows and the cap rates aren't as fabulous as they were, say 2-3 years ago.
And you think over time that's going to slowly fizz the investors off a little bit?
Well,
probably not, because
they're gaining in the equity too, right?
Exactly.
The appreciation.
There's two things. There's cash flow. So as long as it's breaking even, they're getting the appreciation at 27%. You can't put your money in an investment or a stock and get that unless you hit a flyer.
So they're willing to take a negative, like there's investors out there willing to take that negative cash flow of $200 or $300 or $400 a month.
And doing it for years in Toronto area,
knowing
GTA.
that 2 years down the road, their investment's gone up 20% year over year, and that negative cash flow means nothing. As long as they've got the money to cover that, it means nothing to them. That investment's still making them a lot of money in the end. Right.
Joe, I want to talk about the super mortgage team.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, going in, because we were just talking about how, you're going to different lenders now. You're able to go and source different lenders for different deals. And that's part of being creative, I think, as a buyer out in the market right now. You used to work with a big bank, and now you've got your own brokerage, and
that's the major difference. Is I knew everything about the 10 products I could offer you.
Right.
Now I have 10 products times over 36 different lenders.
Wow.
Right. So I have options for everybody. Whether you like the option I have for you or not is really personal preference at the end of the day. But I mean, we get everybody approved. It's just a matter of, do you like the interest rate? Do you like the terms? Do you like where? Because you can
do A lenders, B lenders, C lenders, private lenders, right? You have a whole source of it.
We can do commercial. We can do leasehold improvements if you own a business and you want to buy equipment. I mean, we have so many options now. It's a whole new world. And
wow.
And you're growing pretty quick.
Like I said in one of my social media posts, like, let us be your concierge. Call me up. Tell me what you want. Whether it's a commercial deal or you're building multi-res or whatever you want. You want to finance a business. We have a commercial arm to the super mortgage team now.
Yep.
With Nick Savitas from Stonecrest Capital. He's a guy out of Oakville that I've known for 18 years. He's awesome at commercial. He's kind of a savant that way, and he handles our commercial stuff. And then we've got 8 people on the team now that do the residential mortgages.
Yeah, which is crazy, because I think the last time we got together and really met with each other, there was only 2 or 3 of you, and that wasn't very long ago.
There was 2 of us 6 months ago. Me and my brother started off, and he's co-owner with me in the company, and now we're up to 8, and we have 2 people taking the course right now. So shortly we'll be at 10 agents.
And how long you been in mortgages now total?
18 years.
18 years, top 1% Canada-wide for the last 8 years?
8 years at RBC. I was top 10 at BMO when I left there. I started my career at BMO, got to top 10, then RBC came knocking, and made me a great offer, went over there, had a great time. They're an amazing company to work for.
Yep.
But if I can say I outgrew the biggest bank in Canada, I outgrew the biggest bank in Canada, right? I could only have, 2 people on my team as juniors. Now I have 8 and soon to be 10, right? So business keeps rolling. We have to grow with the business.
Yep.
So unfortunately...
And you've built a lot of relationships in those years over that time that help you
have
along the way too, right? You have a foundation built, which is...
The foundation. I mean, like I've always said, I'm not always the first call for the mortgage, but I'm certainly the second call, and we usually come in. So I say I'm like the fireman. When there's a fire and you need to put out, we figure out a way to get the deal done. So
Yeah, no, our clients have always been ecstatic working with you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, to be able to sit and talk. I mean, we're all a part of the same industry, and we're all dealing with the same issues right now. And you know, unfortunately, it's hard for a lot of people out there. But we try to offer the solutions, and you're a part of that, right? I mean, we consider you a part of the team when it comes to, you know, putting these deals together.
Yeah.
I'd like
really
to
big part
consider myself an extension of your sales force,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
We can't buy a house without money.
that's true.
Yeah.
Joe.
you can, but you can get in trouble.
Yeah. No, I want to do this again. I appreciate you coming on. Anybody ever has any questions, you can reach out to Joe Bondy with Super Mortgage Team. You got Facebook, Instagram. You have a website going right now?
LinkedIn. Yep. Supermortgageteam.ca.
Oh, you got supermortgageteam.ca.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
And we'll put all the contact information in the link above or below, depending on the software we're using. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
Joe.
guys.
Yeah.
You're welcome.